Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest Tammy Lynne Stoner, and she's here to share with us her new novel, Sugarland. Now, Tammy's work's been selected for more than a dozen published collections and literary journals. She was nominated for a Million Writers Award and earned her MFA with Antioch University. Stemming from what her grandmother calls her gypsy blood, Tammy has lived in 15 cities, working as a biscuit maker, a forklift operator, a gas station attendant, and a college instructor, among many other jobs. She's the creator of Dottie's Magic Pockets and the publisher of Gertrude Press, based in Portland, Oregon. So let's welcome to the show, Tammy Lynne Stoner.
Hi, thanks for having me.
What a pleasure it is to have you here, and how exciting your new book was just released.
Yes, it just released October 23rd, so it's hot off the press, yeah.
Hot off the press, and actually what a great time to be talking about your new book. My goodness, so I've got to ask you, your book, Sugarland, it covers a lot, and we're going to get into some of it today. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, it was kind of a multi-layered inspiration, I guess. I had a couple of short stories that were all very Southern and all centered around this one family, but they were in different points of view and that sort of thing. And when I was workshopping them, somebody had suggested that I turn it into a novel, which I'm predominantly a novel writer, but I had such a terrible novel before this one that I spent 10 years on, and it became this monstrous thing that I took apart and put back together and changed the point of view, and it just got out of control, and I vowed I would not write another novel, for like 5 years. It was like a bad relationship, like a terrible breakup. And so when somebody suggested this, I thought, oh God, it does seem like it should be a novel, but each little short story had its own arc, and it didn't really have a full narrative arc. And then I read the story of Leadbelly and realized that, we were dealing with similar themes as to what he dealt with for his entire life, but notably the story around his incarceration at Imperial State Prison Farm. And when I read that, I thought, I could blend the historical story of Leadbelly in with the development of this Southern family, and kind of use the theme of breaking out of imprisonment as the thing for me to hold on to, so that I wouldn't ruin this novel the way I did the previous one. So there's many inspirations.
Well, it's a common thing with writers, I hear, good and different. When a book's been written, I've heard of other novelists that when they've written a book, it could be a New York Times bestseller, and then they don't want to write again. We actually talked to one here it was about a year ago, didn't want to write another book because nothing would be as good as that book. And so you look at it, and it's interesting how we kind of prejudge. And I'm so glad you wrote Sugarland, because it's getting such great reviews. People are loving this book.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. That's always nerve-wracking, putting something out there and waiting for the feedback. I don't feel that way, but it may just be because I'm I lean more on the prolific side of the writing world, even though it takes me forever. So I actually already have another book, or actually I have two more books that are already written. So for me, that pressure of, that pressure's off. This can become the biggest hit in the world, and I still have these other two that I love as well. But, so I don't have the pressure of having not written something while something else gets, all this sort of spotlight.
Moving from there. Well, and hey, we're glad that you're writing, and we can't wait to hear about your other books that are coming. I'm sure you've got many, many more books coming up in your writing career.
I hope so.
Well, and so when we talk about, the blending of this historical fiction, Leadbelly, he was quite a character, and it's interesting to find this piece of a true story that really inspired you. And I would love for you to share a little bit about, Leadbelly's story.
Well, the piece of the story that it really pivots the book a lot is that he was incarcerated in Imperial State Prison Farm, that's down in Sugarland, Texas, in 1923, and he sung for a release from the governor from Texas then, Governor Neff, who had actually run on a platform that he was not going to release or was not going to offer as many pardons as his predecessor had. So but Lead Belly got a 12-string guitar in Sugar Land Penitentiary and sung for a release at sort of a picnic for the guards, and the governor came and sung for a release from the governor using a song, and the governor granted him release from prison. And it was on the last day in office. So I think the governor was like, I'm going to give parole to this violent, notorious criminal who sung this beautiful song, and then I'm out. So when I heard that the power that somebody's music had, that they could sing in the most unlikely of times, to sing from prison to a hardened governor and get granted a release, I just, that inspiration was, there from the start. But that's the part of his life that I focus on, and the part that inspires the rest of my narrative.
Well, I think it's such a fascinating story, and I love how you blended that all together. And what's interesting, while, he's a very strong character within the book, he's not the main character.
Right. Yeah, he inspires the main character and continues to do that, and she actually visits him towards the end of the book on his sort of deathbed in New York. She travels there from Sugar Land to visit. So they have just this real, almost spiritual connection, because given that they were in prison together, she was the cook in the prison and he was in the prison, they didn't have a lot of time to really become friends in the traditional way, but they just connected right off the bat. And he, although his presence is only there, I think for maybe, 15% of the book, he really is something that comes to her throughout the rest of her life as an inspiration.
Wow. That's just very interesting, because, your book, and we were talking about this a little bit ago, you cover you cover all the, heavy topics of that time we've been considered, and some of them were really taboo. We've got prohibition, we have civil rights, we have gay rights, and so it's interesting. You really did such a beautiful job weaving that all together and addressing them in many ways.
Oh, thank you so much. It was it was just the time that was happening, so it allowed me the freedom to have these events happening around the narrative. I think it goes from 1923 to 1968, so it covers that big chunk of time when we had so much happen in the United States and in the South, notably. So it was a real pleasure to be able to, to do the research and to address those time periods. Well, and how long did the research take you? Well, I am sort of I'm a trivia geek, but then it really goes a lot deeper than that. So I'm constantly researching stuff anyway. So it's sort of an endless quest for me to acquire this odd knowledge about things. But this one, I probably researched it for maybe 3 years. And funnily enough, the main chunk of the research that I really required didn't come to me until after I had written and sold the book. And then I finally got a hold of these micro-filmed articles that down in Texas, the Beaumont Library, they sent me copies of them. And then I had to go back in and make some pretty significant editorial changes to the book based on these, on the research that had come. So I was researching from the time I started it, literally up until just months before we went to press, to make sure that I could keep things as accurate as possible. Well, and why do you think it was important for you to write this book overall? That's a really interesting question. Sometimes, there's kind of a strange belief, maybe strange to some folks, but that there's sort of stories out there or ideas out there, or even, spirits from the other side, whatever you want to believe in, that come to people and they just have a story to tell. And it really did feel that way for this particular book, that this person just, wanted to be written. But beyond that, I think, I had sort of had a little bit of imprisonment myself, when I was younger, really struggling with issues about being gay or queer or whatever you want. And so I think it was also really empowering for me to write this person that struggled a lot in the beginning and struggled with society and with family and that sort of thing. And then at the end, becomes this really flamboyantly, delightful, character in a trailer park down in the South, living with pugs and, grandchildren and her, and her partner who's the local seamstress, So for me, I think it was just, I wanted to write this story. I wanted to get away from sort of the narratives that, gay narratives have typically ended, not so well for a lot of time. And that's just not the case. That's not the case with my friends or my life or my history. But so I think that it was really important for me to sort of write the happy ending.
Well, and I'm so glad that you did, because you're right. When we look at, books that have characters or address, gay rights or what have you, a lot of times there is this really bad connotation, but a lot of it has to do with, and I loved how the main character talked about how not only society was kind of viewing her and how she felt personally, but she also briefly was also considering, like, from a spiritual point of view, that people thought that, that she should, like, go to hell, which is,
right.
You look at all the struggles that, that people who are within the LGBTQ community, what they have to go through. But that doesn't mean that they can't be, that we can't be happy at the end.
Yeah, and I definitely think that the narratives that dominated a lot of writing where there are just happen to be gay characters doing something in them, they come from reality. It comes from, a lot of abuses that, whether it's the church or society or even, your friends or whatever. But it doesn't, I think that those narratives were necessary to be told, but there are also other narratives out there too. And, in this one, what I felt like is that it was just sort of universal. She just wanted everyone to know really who she was. And a great part of that is who she loves. And so in her struggle to really connect with her family, she realized that was just a really important part of it. And I think that's true for people for all different kinds of reasons, for all different kinds of reasons, just the struggle to be true to who you are compared with what people want you to be. And then to just say, no, this is really who I am. And if you want to know me and love me, then this is it,
Well, and there's something about living an authentic life where you're feeling like, you're saying, you're being true to yourself, because living a life where you're looking to meet other people's expectations comes with a lot of consequences. I mean,
mm-hmm.
In the book it talks about, the main character, she gained some weight, and it's just, and there's a lot of just emotional things that are going on as well throughout that whole process where she's just trying to be free and be herself.
That's so true. People tend to, imprison themselves in one way or another if there's some sort of, unhappiness or some secrets or some, things that are going on. Yeah, some people may cut themselves off from everybody, or some people may drink too much, or some people may eat too much. But in the book, her weight was like the last level of her imprisonment that she wanted to come out of.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had the actual prison walls, and she had the prison of, what society was saying, and some of it was, very dangerous to be, in love with a girl in the 1920s in rural Texas was not, was not a welcoming space. And so, the last level of it was a very personal level, and that was something that we all, I think, have to deal with, when we are not being authentic or when we aren't allowing our own voices to be heard, it has a negative effect on us in some way, whether we get angry or we can't sleep or we develop bad habits or, these sorts of things. And so I think that was, in her case, she's just sort of, it developed a lot around food that she had to ultimately break away from.
Well, and that speaks to people regardless where you are in your path. And I can see that's why Sugarland is being such a popular book, and why so many people are buying it. And you have this huge community that's really developed around it as well, because people want to feel like they can be authentic in their lives regardless where they're at in their lives.
Yeah, it's true. And even this idea of, being able to say what you mean or speak your truth, it's really hard to do. It's much easier to just sort of tell a little white lie, and kind of get through. But it does affect the connection of what's a genuine connection with people. If you genuinely cannot speak, don't feel as if you can speak your mind, or in this case, this is a much bigger issue, that she didn't feel like she could be true about, who she wanted to spend her life with, or how she wanted to be in the world. I just think it has some very deeply negative or challenging effects on the human body and mind,
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, I know on your website you have a fabulous trailer for the book, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit. I mean, you cannot watch that, and it just pulls you right into the mannerisms and the characters of the book. It's phenomenal.
Oh, thank you so much. My friend Andrea Maxwell, I came to her and I said, would you do a little book trailer for my book? And I was thinking, a little something like an afternoon with a camera. She's very experienced. She's a director, and she's I think working on Spider-Man now or something. So she's in the special effects world most often, and then she does independent like indie directing stuff. Anyway, so she then of course turned it into this massive and gorgeous like short film. I was expecting almost like little paper characters, moving across a board, and she found Teresa Gallagher, who's the who plays Miss Debbie, and just made it into this real like time capsule. I couldn't have asked for anything more. It represents the entire book literally in like 3 minutes. She's a genius, but Teresa is just wonderful, and they actually are working with me now to develop this into either a limited series or a film. So we'll be pitching that around in a little bit, and hopefully with Teresa attached as Miss Debbie, because she's just perfect, right down to the pantsuit and the nails and the whole business,
Yeah,
I loved it.
Praise God and all.
Oh yeah, she's like, praise me, and then the heavens open up. It's hilarious. I thought.
Uh-huh.
That's all Andrea.
Oh my goodness, she did such a beautiful job, and I'm not surprised, because I actually thought that this, because it's so well written and such a great story, it's easy to see where this would be picked up as a movie, or a series or what have you. It's very good. So very excited for you, and love to hear when that actually does get picked up, because I'm sure it'll be happening anytime soon. So.
Oh my gosh, let's keep that thought going. The process can be a little long in the film world, but yeah, I would love it. Nothing would make me happier than to see this. Probably ideally maybe as a limited series, just because it does cover 55 years. That might be hard to do in a film, but they do it all the time. But we're really excited about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because it does bring this all together. And when we talk about, the main character of the book, she eventually, at the young age of 65, finds love and,
right.
is able to just be herself. And as you're saying, she's got her pugs and her trailer, and there's nicknames for all sorts of great things. But it's the mannerism that you wrote this in that it brings the reader in and makes them feel like they're actually there.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. It's so nice to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Very exciting. Well, and so with all this great stuff, what do you want the reader, and I know we've covered quite a bit, but what would you like the reader to take away from your book?
Well, I really hope that in the same way that I was inspired by Lead Belly, who then inspired Dara, I want Dara to really be an inspiration for people, just to to not be down on yourself. We're all not as truthful as I think we'd like to be, or most of us are, and to just see your journey alongside hers, and just to look for the joy and be as honest as you can, and and also take a minute to enjoy your time and to appreciate don't be so hard on yourself, and I think that she was hard on herself in the story for a little while there, being unable to be there for people the way she wanted to. And you can't change the past. Just enjoy the present and be as honest as you can, and have a good time.
I think that's something that everyone would enjoy taking into their lives, is having just more fun, not take things so seriously. And your book really is a great outline for people to do that. Well, Tammy Lynne, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
I really appreciate all your time, too. This was lovely chatting with you.
Well, thank you, Tammy Lynne. It has been such a pleasure to spend this time with you, and of course, to talk about your new book, Sugarland. Now, Sugarland's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And make sure to drop by Tammy's website at tammylynnestoner.com for more information. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.